All right, I think we are live. So, welcome everyone to another live stream here. Hope you guys are all having a good Sunday. Thanks for joining here for the live stream. And yeah, like all the other live streams here, we're going to go for about 2 hours. We're going to give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or anyone who's a member. But otherwise, yeah, we can just go through some questions here and just hang out like we always do. So anyway, I see Omar here with the first question. Thanks for always joining in, Omar. He says, Matt, when are you riding in the Toyota Grand Highlander and comparing it to the competition? I don't know if I'm at liberty to say yet when I'm doing the Grand Highlander drive, but I can say that it is relatively soon. So you won't have too much longer to wait for that. I'm not exactly sure when embargo stuff is going to lift, so I can't even say exactly when because I don't know exactly, but I do know I will be driving it relatively soon. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, it won't be too much of a longer wait. I know you're very interested in the Grand Highlander, Omar, so I'll have lots of answers for you here in the not too distant future. I see we got a bunch of the members joining in. Thanks for swinging by, everyone, and hope you're all having a good Sunday here. Carlos says, how's everything going? Going well. Just another fun weekend here. And Rafi says, hi, Matt. Happy car wash Sunday. That's awesome. I miss hand washing my car. Since we moved into this new house, I don't have a water line close enough to the garage. Strangely, they didn't have a water line in the garage or in the driveway. And I have to run a hose from like either the front or the back of the house in order to like do anything in the driveway with water, and the water pressure is so low that it's not even like really possible to effectively wash a car. So one of these days I'm going to put a water line in to the garage and actually be able to hand wash. But in the meantime, I just go to the quick spray off places. But I love hand washing my cars. That's something I hope to get back to doing here soon. Blooper Reel says, you're going to be at the Volkswagen ID7 reveal tomorrow morning. I am not. Yeah, I didn't even know the reveal was happening tomorrow morning, to be honest with you. But no, I don't get Volkswagen invites for any kind of events or anything from them. I get press cards from them, but that's it. So we'll not be at the reveal there. And thanks everyone else for joining in. I see David says, good morning. Good morning to you as well. And good afternoon to all of you here on the East Coast, or evening, I guess, if you're watching this in Europe or somewhere else in the world. But Raphael says he washed the car and took both the car and the motorcycle for rides this morning. Sounds like a perfect morning. That's awesome. And Dylan says, ready for the 2023 Colorado. I'm hoping to review one of those relatively soon. I didn't go on the press launch for that, but I'm hoping to have one here as a press vehicle at some point, but it's not on the schedule yet. So at this point, I would say don't expect it until the summer, but I definitely want to get into the Colorado. And I will be, if you saw my exclusive member post there with the schedule of what's going to be coming up, you will know that there is the Canyon coming up not too far off here. So that'll be very similar to the Colorado for anyone that's curious about my thoughts on that. And Dylan also says RF Racing is going back to a ZR2. I don't know their channel, so I'm totally in the dark on that one. Rafi says he finds it therapeutic to wash the car, and everyone thinks I'm crazy. No, I don't think you're crazy at all. I think a lot of most enthusiasts probably would agree with you that it's therapeutic. I feel like it's a nice way to bond with your car, even though that probably sounds even crazier to say, but I love you. You can really take in a car's design so much better when you wash it by hand yourself. And yeah, I love washing cars, and it is very therapeutic. I agree. Gary says more exciting than the Colorado is the 2024 Tacoma, which is going to be true. I'm excited to see. I mean, I guess we'll see how they all compare and what they end up doing with all of them. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they end up doing with Tacoma. Like we saw the teaser 2 weeks ago of the iForce Max badge on the back there. If they really put the Tundra motor in that thing, that is going to be so much fun. And let me see here. I saw Omar says, what is your favorite three-row SUV in the mid-series class in 2023? I still have to drive a few more of them. I'm going to be driving a Pilot here relatively soon, and I want to wait for the Grand Highlander to make a final assessment. But I do have to say the CX-90 I just drove was so nice to drive in most ways. If you watch the review, you'll know, stop and go stuff in traffic wasn't the best, but I would live with it, honestly, because that thing just is so awesome, both for the plug-in hybrid and for the Turbo S version. So Challenger Chris says he only does hand washes for the Challenger. Yeah, it's really the only way to, I guess, do a good wash and know that it's being done correctly is when you do it yourself. Because even, when I go to the spray place, it doesn't really get off as much of the stuff as you'd like to. It's nice having the power washer, but it still is just better, I think, if you're still actually making contact there sometimes. And Blue Real says Volkswagen's been teasing the ID7 all weekend. I must have missed that. I'm not sure how I missed that. Usually I'm up on car Twitter and stuff pretty well, but yeah, I'm also not on my phone as much whenever it's the weekend because I'm just hanging with the family. But I'll have to look into that. Dylan says, I wonder what the 2023 Palisade will look like. Palisade isn't changing. They just got the refresh for the 2023 model year, and I did a video on that back in the fall. And I don't think there's going to be anything new for the Palisade for a couple of years, after that. But Raphael says, I think the new Type R is attractive. The Integra Type S is gorgeous. It's worth extra money just for the looks. I agree too, just because I can't bring myself to daily drive a vehicle with an enormous rear wing like the Type R. It's just not my personality. So the Type S or the Type S is definitely more my speed as far as something a little more under the radar, but still very cool looking. And I'd go for the Type S probably over the Type R, even without having driven the Type S. I would probably say that'd be my pick. As long as it's not insanely more expensive than a Type R. Adam says he just woke up from sunny San Diego. Thanks for joining us here, Adam. Carlos says it's going to be my last day at Mazda next Saturday, which is awesome, but I don't get the perk of hand washing my car every 2 weeks. That's unfortunate. And I'll be curious to see where you're going next, Carlos. That's I feel like Mazda, they seem like at least they have good products and stuff. So I'll be curious to see where you move to. But yeah, my sister loves her Mazda. She's got a CX-5, and neighbors got Mazdas. Everyone around here seems to have CX-5s. Very popular and for good reason, I think. Rafi also says, I love the Type S. I would most likely trade my FK8 for one. I just really wanted a sunroof. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised there's no sunroof. And I'm also kind of surprised they didn't just swap in the back seat from a regular Integra. Like, it has the Type R's weird, cup holder thing in the middle to make it a 4-seater. I'm not sure if there's some engineering reason why they don't feel comfortable putting a third seat in the middle there in the back on these cars, or if it's a suspension tuning thing or what, why they can't have a middle seat. And I would assume it wouldn't be insanely hard to swap in an Integra back seat from a regular Integra just to do that. But those could have been key differentiations aside from, not having the wing and the other, the heated seats. There are some nice things there, but I feel like they really missed the boat with, putting the sunroof in it, putting an actual 3-seater in the back. Those have been two really big things I think could have swayed a lot more people as well. And things that I didn't think would be hard to do. Maybe that's something they'll save for the next model year. Maybe they'll hear the feedback and, incorporate those things, because I don't think there's any reason why they can't. But someone decided along the way we should have this 16-speaker stereo and all these awesome things, but no sunroof. So that's why there's got to be some engineering reason for that. As far as maybe they didn't want to give up rigidity or something, I have no clue. But definitely seems like a little bit of a strange choice. Yeah, RFE says he doesn't go to the track, and so having the seats and the sound system would be your reasons. Yeah, and great reasons there as well. I'm curious to try out those seats though, because they seem a little underwhelming. They look comfortable, but I was just hoping for the adjustable bolsters that I believe you can get in the TLX Type S, if my memory serves me right. I know the MDX Type S has seats like that. Obviously, those seats are way bigger, so you can't just put those in a little Integra. But I was hoping for something a little more advanced there. But still, again, it's gonna be awesome. Dylan says he loves my V6s because, fuel efficiency matters. V8s are just gas guzzlers. Potentially, but it all comes down to gearing a lot of the times. Like my Bullet, for example, 480 horsepower, 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 engine, and I still do 30 mpg on the highway if I'm just cruising in 6th gear. So, it really comes down. Yet, there's been some 4-cylinders like the WRX. I get better fuel economy in my Bullet than I got in the WRX when I had one of those for a week. So, it used to be that, you could say this kind of an engine means you get this kind of fuel economy, but really, especially with the turbo stuff these days, it's really on a per case basis as far as what actually does well fuel economy wise. Dijuk says, do you think this sunk cost fallacy is common, where a manufacturer has an almost failure at their hands, but continues not replacing it due to the R&D cost that was spent on the released car? That's a good question. I don't know how common that really is. I mean, it's one of those things, unfortunately, it goes through the accountants of, what is the payoff here? Do we just, if there's a very small minor thing, do we just, take care of those on an individual basis, pay out a bunch of money to those people, or do whatever it is, and then, carry on, or, go back to the drawing board? I honestly, I have no clue how common that is, though. It's a very interesting thing to think about, but I have no clue. Copper says Maxima I was looking at didn't work out. Looking at a 2010 EX35, now probably better anyway because of the rear-wheel drive platform versus front-wheel drive, and it's more practical and all-wheel drive. EX35. I'm trying to remember. Is that the like SUV thing below the FX35? That's been a while since I've even seen one of those. But yeah, I unfortunately don't know anything about them, so I can't really chime in on that. But bummer about the Maxima not working out. But yeah, it's all, everything always works out for, one reason or another. Double Strike Photo says, I think a lot of people forget one of the biggest benefits of a sunroof is opening it to the vent position, which can quickly get stale out of the car, even if it's not sunny weather. Yeah, and it's just honestly, like, I really enjoyed whenever I had, which car was I driving recently with this sunroof? I think it was actually when I had the GTI, I think this past couple of weeks ago, just venting that sunroof was just really nice. Just because sometimes, like you don't want air coming from the side windows because it hits you in the face and stuff. It's just a little bit more if you just need a little bit of a breeze, a little bit of venting, yeah, it's so nice to vent that or even open it, because at least when you're opening it, a lot of times, unless you're going really fast, it's not like direct air hitting you either. So I still love sunroofs. That's one thing. It would have been nice if they could have incorporated like a panoramic roof in the Mustangs or something like that to, give you kind of an open air experience whenever you don't want a convertible. But so yeah, I totally agree with you. I love sunroofs. And David says, I used Veloster and DCT rather than a new Mark 8 GTI. Yeah, I guess if you're talking automatic versus automatic, yeah, I still like the Veloster better. And I didn't mention the Veloster in my GTI review, David, because I try whenever I do these comparisons at the end of the video, I try and limit it to just new stuff that's on the market. Because you start bringing in used stuff, obviously it gets a little less fair because they're going to be cheaper. There's you have things from the past 100 years to pick from that could potentially be better in various ways. But yeah, that's something I certainly agree with. Is I would take a Veloster and DCT over a Mark 8 GTI all day, any day, and I'd take it over a Mark 7 GTI either or as well. And I would. Probably, yeah. As far as hatches go, Veloster N still is king in my mind, from a value, like a dollar fun kind of standpoint. Because yes, like a Civic Type R is faster than the Veloster N potentially, and you have some of these others that compete. Like Gia Corolla, Golf R, stuff like that is awesome. If you got the disposable money, you want to spend, almost double the price, go for it. But I think Veloster N is a ton of fun for under 30 grand. And they were kind of holding their value, which was a little bit unfortunate if you're trying to find a deal on the used market. But I think they're now starting to come back down and you can get a decent amount of performance package for, comfortably under 30. And if you don't care about the performance package, which I'm not sure why there's so many non-performance package Veloster N's out there, but on Auto Trader and stuff, there's a bunch of them and those are cheaper because I feel like most people want the limited slip diff and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love the Veloster N still. Mike says, I know you addressed it in the weekly update, but can you give us more in-depth thoughts on the proposed 2027 to 2032 emissions from the EPA? I know the 2024 election makes that subject to change. Yeah, I think, like I said in the weekly update, I think the big win was no outright ban, because, we're seeing how in Europe that still is getting kind of weird. And obviously the car companies, they don't want any regulation at all. In a perfect world, they just want to do whatever they want to do and let the consumer decide, which is great, except, there are some things where you need to have regulation, just because sometimes people will not do the right thing unless, regulation, as far as car companies go and corporations in general, corporations are going to try and just make the biggest amount of profit possible. They don't care about anything other than that. So, I think regulation for corporations is important, but as far as, any extra thoughts on that? I mean, yeah, like you said, it's definitely subject to change, and I'm just, we'll see. All these things, especially the mandates with like the 2035 stuff that New York and California and stuff are doing. From what I've seen, none of those actually have any fines if they don't hit those targets. These are all things, again, that are still, over a decade away. Things can change so wildly, as far as what the landscape is like, not only just as far as new technologies, but as far as what if there's a crazy war that breaks out or something. Like the last thing we're going to be worried about is a green transition if World War III breaks out or something. So I mean, there is so many things, that it's all these things are just nice goals and thoughts, and it's like great, like sure, by 2032 or 2035 I'd like to be a millionaire too, like let's go for that goal, and we'll see where we all end up. It's the same. I view it in the same way. So I don't take it too seriously. Obviously, like there's the fuel economy regulations, and for car companies it's important because they're designing stuff for the next 10 years. They are looking forward and saying, okay, well, do we invest in a new engine if it only lasts till 2032 or what? So for them it's important to do that long-term stuff and have an idea of, okay, well, this is probably where things are headed. But again, they don't just look at the EPA stuff. They look at what works best for them, what they need to do for the rest of the world, because obviously we have some pretty large markets here as far as our economies and stuff, but we're still not the end all be all of the world. Like what we do doesn't dictate what the rest of the world does, as we've seen in Europe, where they're doing stuff that we're not doing here yet. So there's a lot of complicated decisions that go into that for the car companies as far as what they choose to do. But obviously all the fuel economy stuff that's happening, it's a global thing. This is not something that can be changed by a new president. It can delay stuff, and I guess if you are fine with us going back to the 60s when every car that was made in America, or every car that you bought in America, was basically an American made thing. So if we go back to Chevy, Ford, and Stellantis, I guess, and Dodge and Jeep and stuff, of being like the only car companies or something, or them plus a few others, that's the only way that something like that can exist, where we're this isolated country that does our own thing and has our own rules and is completely different from what everyone else is doing. Most of these car companies, they're going to go along with whatever the whole world is doing, just from a cost saving standpoint and stuff. They can't do too many things that are super customized just for America. So okay, I've said in past weekly updates and stuff too, when talking about the emission stuff, I think the best case scenario is you'll see stuff like the Mustang, which is like sticking around with the same tech, basically with a few minor little adjustments. But seeing old stuff that we currently have sticking around is like the best case thing. But I wouldn't expect any kind of crazy new investments as far as gas engines go. And even like for Chevy, they have the new V8 coming. But even that, they've justified they will sell so many trucks and SUVs to justify that engine over the next decade. Like that's the reason why they're justifying, building that new engine. But for a lot of other companies that have less resources or have different constraints, like that's not realistic. So, yeah, there's some extra thoughts there, I guess, but I could go on a whole tangent and go off in various directions. But that's kind of, I guess, a little bit more there. Hopefully that gives you a little more of my thoughts on it, but I'll be curious to see what some of you think about it as well. I saw some in the comments for sure in the weekly update, but always curious to hear how people take that stuff. But anyway, Jeremy Wang, sorry for the wait here. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, do you think all the midsize pickup trucks will move to Turbo 4s in the future? Do you prefer them over NAV6s? Well, the only midsize truck with a Turbo 4, I believe, that I've driven so far is the Ranger, and I gotta say that in the Ranger, I mean, yeah, that powertrain made everything else feel like a dinosaur. I mean, the Ranger, it's such a shame the Ranger is such an old platform and an old shell, because the powertrain is top notch. The 10-speed auto blows everything else out of the water from everybody else. And that Turbo 4, I mean, that clearly makes the Ranger the hot rod of the group, at least as far as, talking in the past years. Again, we'll see what happens in the future with all the new stuff this year. But, as far as the benefits, it's really going to come down to usage cases and stuff as far as what's better. I think a lot of people like the simplicity of the V6s, and I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be scrambling to get the old V6 Tacomas if it does turn out that they're getting rid of the V6 altogether, and that or at least as far as an naturally aspirated V6. A lot of people like that old simple kind of thing. And they'll still have that, for example, in the Frontier. It's going to continue on with that. And so there are some of those for the future as well. But, I think as far as if Tacoma goes Turbo 4, and you see the punchy 4-cylinder in the Colorado and stuff like that, I mean, I think it certainly probably will make sense. And I think at the end of the day, again, you're getting a faster, more powerful truck. And for people who value that maybe over potential longevity concerns, things like that, I mean, it's going to be, a win for them. So it can go both ways, I think. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let me see some other, I know we have a bunch of other member comments here come in. So Carlos says, Mazda was my part-time job, so now I get to enjoy weekends. I might apply to Audi and Mercedes if I get bored. Well, that's awesome. You can have some more free time. That's great. You're able to not have to worry about a part-time job anymore. That's a huge win on its own. So congrats, Carlos, and enjoy those weekends. All right. So other questions here. Copper says, yeah, the EX35 is below the FX, basically just a G and SUV form. Yeah, I've never driven one of those, never covered them, never really knew much about them. So that would be something be worth highlighting in a video if I ever come across one, I think, because it could be something that a lot of people might enjoy learning about. And Jajik says, is the Veloster End more fun than the Elantra End if the Elantra End platform is newer? I think for me, I just enjoy the Veloster End a little bit more because it's just smaller dimensions. And so that makes it a little more tossable. I also like the driving position a little bit better in the Veloster End. The Elantra End is still a little awkward for me, just with my body type and stuff for the driving position, where the gauges are up a little bit too high. I'm sitting low and I want to sit low, but the steering wheel and stuff, it just was a little awkward. I didn't mind it. It's such an awesome car. I would probably learn to live with it. But that's another thing. Like this week, I actually have the same thing. I don't know if it's a Hyundai Kia thing or what, but I have a Kia EV6 GT, and you'll see a review on that here in a few weeks. But that's another one where the seating position, it's like, yes, it's kind of a crossover, so I'm supposed to sit up a little bit higher, but then like the steering wheel doesn't come low enough. And I like having a steering wheel nice and low. So for me, it's a little unfortunate whenever some of these cars have these really high steering wheels. So then I'm just like, okay, but then if I move my seat up, then I can't see the gauges anymore. So it's this whole like thing. And there's some cars where just, this is why it's always important to, sit in a car before you buy it, at least, just to make sure you can at least get a comfortable seating position, because not all cars fit all body types, unfortunately. I see, Ithran, thank you so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. And I'll keep an eye out here for any questions you might have. But thanks for joining the club here. Ace of Spades says, when families move to 2 full EV vehicles, I wonder what is the approximate investment going to go full solar? Is it 20, 50, or 50 grand or more? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to come down to, how solar tech advances as well to bring those costs down, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's going to really help a lot. If they can kind of boost the solar thing, that'll certainly take some of the strain off the grid as well. And I think that's one huge thing. I mean, I know whenever I go on some of these trips, especially like out west, there's a lot more solar, roofs and stuff. But that's something that seems like an easy opportunity that should be really, I think that'd be a perfect solution in a lot of ways. If we can't upgrade the grid fast enough, and we have these blackouts and stuff, like if I lived in a place that had all these power outages like a lot of these areas do, like that'd be my first priority, is getting solar roofs. And even around here we have power outages not fairly frequently, but anytime there's a storm, we have so many trees that, like, if there's anything more than like a 20-mile-per-hour gust, it's like, oh no, a tree's going to fall over and knock out the power. And it's gotten to the point where, I mean, we really want solar on the roof of our house because we're in a prime spot where we get a lot of sun, and it'll make a lot of sense. It's just they're expensive, even with the subsidies and stuff, they're not cheap. And then you gotta get the battery to store the energy and all that. So it's a whole thing. But I think if they really can bring the cost down on the solar, there's a lot more people that would jump on that. Then again, you have less energy being taken out of the grid. It also makes it greener because everyone's just generating mostly their own electricity. I think it'd be great. It's just trying to get that tech cheap enough that it's not a big upcharge for people. David says, I autocross the 2022 BRZ, would like to have something I can daily that my family can drive if they need to. The Veloster DCT fits my hot hatch addiction. And it's kind of practical because you got that extra door there in the back. And honestly, it's a deep trunk too. Like, you can fit a big stroller in that thing. You can fit all kinds of stuff. It's actually a deeper trunk than a GTI, in my opinion. And the Veloster is such a cool car that never got the love or attention I think it deserved. I mean, they have their following, but I thought it was a way better idea than anyone ever gave them credit for, with having that extra door and stuff. And Kyle says, I read that the new turbo high output engine in the Colorado is not as quick as the V6 prior engine. Interesting. You would think would definitely be quicker, unless they're having traction issues or something. That's interesting. I will try that out whenever I driving the Canyon and also the Colorado, and I'll see for myself. But I had not heard that. That's interesting. Raphael says, I like some electric vehicles, but the charging just isn't there yet. When I want to buy gas, there's a station on every corner with enough pumps that I've never once had to wait. 100%. And these are the things that things that are being worked on. And again, this could be a whole nother tangent that I'm not going to, go down too much. But, I think the bottom line in my mind is, I would say a huge majority of people that have electric cars never go to a fast charger. We did it just only like, with our Mach-E, we did it only whenever we were on the one road trip we did to the beach last year. And, most people do like maybe one road trip for, a vacation or something like that. If they even do that, most people fly for their vacation destinations these days. But if you are someone who road trips, obviously, I'd go for one of either the fastest charging EVs or save yourself a headache, get a plug-in hybrid. I still like the RAV4 Prime is the perfect car for most people. You have tons of space, you have 42 miles of electric range for your normal driving, your normal commute. That's enough for most people. And then you got the gas, so you don't ever have to worry. But, I think another thing with the infrastructure people have to keep in mind is, it's this whole balancing act of you don't want to have a bunch of excess chargers that aren't being used or anything. You want to make sure, like anything else, you're matching demand and supply so that you're not losing out on too much money. Because again, at the end of the day, this still goes back to money like everything else. And so, having a bunch of idle chargers that are never working is not good business strategy. So it's this whole thing. And one comparison I try and like make sometimes is, a lot of people look at the infrastructure right now and they're like, oh, like they want to have everything be electric by 2035, but look at the infrastructure now. And it's like, yes, but this is the infrastructure now. 2035, that'll be very different. And if, it'd be like expecting Amazon to build enough warehouses for 2022 demand back in like 1998 when they're getting started. It's like, you don't do that. You don't have a bunch of empty warehouses because there's not enough demand for all that. Amazon, I'm sure, scaled up their warehouses and, slowly built, their infrastructure to support it and, try to keep up with demand. And they did a very good job with that. And I think hopefully the money will come in and that will be the case for the infrastructure as well. And obviously I think we're lagging behind a little bit because there are a lot of people that, have troubles at, EV charging stations. But I think most of that just comes down to reliability. If they were reliable, I think, the amount of chargers is probably okay. I think a lot of times you run into problems because one of them's down, so then everyone else has to share the other three or whatever the case is. But I think it's one of those things that will take time. But, looking through it through the lenses of 2023, yes, we're not at the place where we need to be in 2035. But we're also, not we're not living in the year 2035 yet. So that's why we don't have infrastructure for the year 2035. So as, everything's going to ramp up again, no one's going to go buy an electric car overnight. Like it's a gradual thing. They chart this out and they're going to try and, match the infrastructure growth to accommodate that. And again, it's going to come down to whether the investments get made or not. And if they don't, then expect all those deadlines get pushed back or thrown out the window again, depending on what ends up happening in the world and how things progress. But I have faith that, it can be done properly if the money comes in and the priorities are there, and Dylan says, I think a lot of airport car rental services are getting a lot of 2020 to 2033 cars and SUVs in for people to use as rentals, which is great. So you can get their hands on them to experience with them. Yeah, I think that's one of the really nice things about rental cars is it kind of gets you exposed to new technology and new vehicles for a lot of people that don't, test drive stuff or don't go out of their way to learn about cars. It's kind of a good entry for them. But that also makes it tricky, like with Hertz switching over to EVs and stuff. It's like that's going to be tough for them. I would not want to do Hertz customer service right now with all these Teslas out there and stuff. Like, obviously for us that are enthusiasts, it's not hard, but for a lot of people, it's very foreign and it's tough to, help people with change and new things. Dom, thank you so much for joining as well. I see he's saying hello, Matt. And I got to get caught up on questions here. Kyle says, hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on the rumored Tesla Model 2 for under 25 grand? Do you think that will make EVs really take off? Well, thank you so much for the super chat, Kyle. I think it would be a great idea. I think, it sounds like Tesla's priority still, from what I've seen, is just that, I see, man, Omar, you got to quit spamming the comments, buddy. I'm sorry, but you've like just completely filled the entire thing. I'm not gonna answer if it's like just constant spam. So I'm gonna just do a timeout there just so we can not flood the comments here with the same question. Anyway, sorry, Kyle. So as far as the Model 2, I think, it's something they're focusing on for Europe because those smaller things sell better in Europe. So I think that's why we're going to first see some kind of Tesla Model 2. Obviously, Tesla's so behind with everything else that, they're still trying to get out the Cybertruck. They're still trying to figure out the Semi. the Roadster potentially, if that's still on the table, so Model 2, I mean, unless some miracle happens as far as how they develop Teslas, if they're going by the current candidates of how they actually do these things, typically it's going to be 2030 before you see a Model 2, and that's probably being generous, honestly. So I don't know. I'm not really thinking there's any legitimacy to those kind of rumors. I'd love to be wrong, but I think you're going to see GM and Chevy particularly trying out that segment first and see how the Equinox EV sells at 30 grand and see how those other things do. And, because Chevy's actually working on something they said cheaper than the Equinox as well. So they'll probably hit the 25 grand mark before Tesla does. And we'll see how that goes over. And if that does well, then, you might see some more stuff. But I mean, there was a huge spike in Chevy Bolt sales, right off the bat. Basically, once it started being eligible for those tax credits once again, like Bolts were just flying out the showroom doors. So I think a lot of people are, very excited for electric stuff that's affordable. I mean, because it saves you a ton of money. Because the average consumer hates oil changes. They hate filling up their car with gas, all that stuff. If they can just get into the habit of plugging their car in every night in their garage, if they have that luxury of having a garage or a driveway, you plug it in every night like your phone. It's ready to go the next day. You never have to take it in for service. You never have to deal with dealerships, the service departments and stuff again. Like that is music to most people's ears. And so, unless they, have the drawbacks of the EVs that are bothersome to them. Otherwise, it's like 100% like, yes, take my money. I want an EV. And that's why we're seeing the quick growth in EV sales. I think it was like 2.5%, a year or two ago. And now it's jumped up, I think 5 or 6% now adoption rate for EVs out on the road there. So, I mean, they're gaining ground quickly. And I think it's just going to keep going in that direction. All right. So Kyle says, yeah, as far as talking about the charging infrastructure and all that, yeah. And so, like you said, living in an apartment complex with no charging station. Yeah. So that's really the big, group that is still being overlooked in these EV conversations is, people that live in apartments, people that, or just live in houses that don't have driveways or garages. If you have street parking at your house, even, obviously EVs are just a non-starter because I would never own an EV if I had to go to a charging station once a week and sit there for 30 minutes or whatever to charge it up. Even with the fastest charging EVs, it's still just a pain, So 100%, if I was in an apartment complex and I wanted the electric experience, I would go for a plug-in hybrid. Or, I mean, honestly, even that's kind of, I guess, a luxury because you still can't even plug that in. So I'd probably just stick with a hybrid until either your living situation changes or, the infrastructure gets to the point of the same as gas, which it seems like the solid state batteries are going to get pretty close here in the next few years. And then that could make it a lot more doable. And Dom says, hey, Matt, do you know gas had the same issue as EV charging stations? Or do you know if gas had the same issue as EV charging stations? I would think so. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, we're going back 100 years here to the same kind of things where, cars were a luxury and they were this thing that, yeah, you had to, figure out the stations. I think, with the Model T, though, that's when that whole thing became much more widespread. And then again, they saw the demand. And so they hurried up and quickly, met that demand. And, and then for that, it was even more harder than it is with the EVs thing right now, because with that, not only was it like, hey, we need to have gas stations, but we also need to have roads that accommodate things that aren't horses or pedestrians, and redesign these roads to also accommodate those, other people on the road. And it was, a lot more complicated the way they did it back then. So if they could figure it out 100 years ago, I'm confident we can figure it out today, as long as, again, greed and other stuff doesn't get in the way. But we definitely have the ingenuity and the engineers and the know-how to get it done. It's just a matter of if there's the motivation, honestly. And Ithran says, hey, Matt, have you had any experience with the Infiniti FX35 or 45? Looking for a compact SUV on the used market. It still has enjoyable dynamics. Curious to hear your thoughts if you had seat time. I have never driven an FX. They sound great. Every time an FX35 or 45 drove past, they always sounded so good. As just basically sound like a 350Z, but never driven one. And that's a vehicle that I actually would like to do, because it seems like used Infinitis do really well on my channel typically. So if I can find a nice clean FX35 or 45, or even like I was mentioning earlier, the EX, to drive, I will definitely do a review on those, because I'm curious myself how they drive, and I've heard some good things about them a long time ago. So Yeah, I'd love to try them out, but unfortunately, I don't have any insight for you. But hopefully, it's something I can do someday. Harris says, "Hey Matt, hope you and everyone here are doing well and having a good Sunday. Glad I can finally make one of these. Thanks for joining, Harris. I really appreciate it." And Goth Rocker here says, "Matt, my problem is I feel electric is being forced on us. I feel like cars are too expensive. And lastly, I feel as a taxpayer, money should go to better things. The oil companies built the gas network." Yeah, and so I think that's part of the thing is hopefully, the people that stand to make money off of the electric, stuff that they will be the ones that kind of make the investments, or gas companies. Like we see Shell has just bought, I think, one of the charging networks, and that's the thing is for them to get into it. And I think, I mean, I don't know my history as far as if there was any incentives 100 years ago to encourage, car adoption, or if those oil companies back then had any incentives. I have no clue how that is historically, but yeah, I mean, as far as the forcing thing, the only thing I can say is, not to worry too much because, again, even in Europe, the 2035 thing is, something that they're, playing around with. And again, they're offering up the e-fuels exemption there. And here, I mean, we're so much further behind Europe. It's going to be 2050 probably before there's anything that's actually mandated, if that ever even happens. And again, if there isn't any other new technologies. Like I was just talking this past weekly update about how Exxon and Toyota are working together on a lower carbon fuel that could, they say, like reduce 75% of the greenhouse gases emitted from cars, I think. So, I mean, there's all these other things that are always being worked on. Fusion energy could become a thing. I mean, there's all these different things, that could spur it one way or the other, depending on how things play out. So I really wouldn't worry. It's a long time away from even, 2032. I think that EV adoption you're seeing currently is voluntary. People are getting it because they want it. And I'm all about choice. So, nothing's being forced on anyone for the next 10 years, as far as I can see. So I don't think you have to worry too much just yet. And, once 2032 hits, then we'll see where we're at. And, we can, have a stronger opinion, I think, at that point, if things do get into a forceful, standpoint. But I don't think they surely cannot think they could pull that off. Like you can't force anyone into anything. I mean, look at what happened the past 3 years with COVID and the debate about, some of the simple things that were being done with that. And so if you're talking about that, I mean, taking away someone's personal mobility with like giving them limits of what they can choose as far as cars and stuff, like it's never going to fly. So, I wouldn't worry too much. And Dylan says, I will say I do like the 2018 Impala 2LZs, but problem is the rear seat area doesn't have its own climate and the air vents don't really push a lot of air, and the trunk space is also an issue. I haven't been in an Impala in a while. So I'm kind of out of the loop on what those are like, honestly. And Harris says 25 grand EV range will be a nice budget for a city EV beater for sure. Yeah, and it'll be great, for those who just, that are okay renting a car for a road trip. They can save a bunch of money 99% of the time with their little, 25 grand EV. And Jajuk says, which SUV is better for a family for three, Santa Fe or Tucson? I mean, I think the Tucson will be sufficient, because you don't have the loaded up backseat or anything like that. So I think Tucson is totally fine. Santa Fe, though, if you have, need the extra space or you transport larger things, Santa Fe is great. They sell super well because it's really unmatched in its segment as far as actually offering updates. Because like the Ford Edge is old, Murano's ancient. The Santa Fe is one of the few they've actually invested to keep it, current. So I love the Santa Fe. I did a review on one a few years back, but I think for family of three, Tucson's probably fine. Again, unless you have something that requires the extra space. Jay says those 25 grand Teslas will likely have the worst quality finish. Totally possible. We'll see. I haven't been up to date as far as whether Tesla's actually fixed any of that stuff or not. Ace of Spades says Stradman did a vlog of taking his Hummer EV to Moab. It was quite the disaster of a trip for him. Yeah, so I didn't see that video. I don't know the Stradman, so I can't really weigh in on that. But what I will say is there was someone else that did a video about how their Lightning was like terrible and like dropped so much range in the wintertime, and basically just said a bunch of stuff that anyone that knows EVs already knew, but they make it this disaster because that's what gets clicks. And again, I'm not making any kind of judgments, but I would just say that the bigger of a disaster a video is, the more exciting it is, the more click worthy it is, and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, obviously, again, charging networks aren't great. Going out in the middle of nowhere is not great. I mean, TFL Truck had their Hummer that had issues and all that. So I mean, I totally would believe that it was a fiasco organically, but yeah, it's just one of those things with EVs. You really got to do a lot more planning, and you got to also have a little bit of luck on your side. Like even with our road trip we did last fall in the Mach-E to the beach, I mean, that could have totally turned out horribly if we showed up at chargers and they didn't work and we didn't have enough range to get to the next one or something. It's why you just got to make sure you always have enough of a buffer. Don't run your range down too much. Make sure that you've planned all your stops out and you've counted for backup stops in case your original plan A doesn't work out. You got to have plan B and C. And I like planning stuff, so for me it's exciting to like calculate everything out and figure it all out and stick to the plan. But a lot of other people that are just like fly by the seat of their pants, don't want to think about it. They want to hop in the car and just randomly get lost somewhere and be able to fill up every 5 minutes if they want. Like gas is obviously going to be a lot more easy to handle for those people. Just comes down to personal preference and personality types. So but it's interesting though. I haven't seen that Stradman video. I'll have to check that out at some point. Harris says Infiniti used to make an FX50 with a 5-liter V8. Man, did it sound nice and look good. Yeah, I thought the 45 also possibly was that a V8 too, or am I misremembering? I thought 45 was a V8 as well. But yeah, it's just cool stuff that I wish they would do. These days, but a V8 and something that's not enormous. Double strike photo. All right, he commented before I even did about the Stradman thing. He was also a complete moron. Double strike photo says he didn't precondition the batteries, he didn't charge properly, and generally acted like someone who had no idea what he was doing. Okay, so it's the same thing as whoever it was that did the lightning video, and they were like, "What? This thing loses range in the wintertime?" It's very easy to play up these things for people who don't understand EVs and paint them in the worst light. And that's like saying, wow, I did a burnout and now my tires have no traction anymore. Like, what happened? It's like, yeah, sometimes you make it harder on yourself with some of that stuff. So all right, well, good to know that my hunch was correct, unfortunately. Raphael says, will Infiniti make a comeback? They make good cars, they just didn't update them. There's been rumors about Infiniti potentially becoming like Nissan Plus, and just having a bigger lineup, which is I think what they need, but that they would just do the same thing that Lexus and all these others do, for the most part, which is a proven winning strategy. And I think that if you made a nicer Altima that had Infiniti badges on it, like that would sell great. I think if you made just nicer versions of everything within Nissan, I think that would be a home run for Infiniti. So I hope, honestly, it sounds lame, but I really hope they just rebadge all the Nissans as Infinitis and make them nicer inside. Because I think Infinitis have nice interiors. You got the quilted seats on, the newest stuff and all that. I mean, I think that kind of stuff in a Nissan would be really, really solid. So, but as far as whether they do make a comeback, they certainly seem to think they'll make a comeback from all the interviews. We'll see if they end up actually, being able to actually do that or not. But yeah, and Cass, thank you so much for the super thanks there. And I see you do have a comment, so I'm gonna get to that here. He says, "You think Dodge will change the look of the new Charger like they did for all the electric for the all electric Dodge Ram? And any guess on the base price of the new Dodge Charger?" Yeah, so I don't know if they're gonna change the styling. I was 100% gonna be like, oh, they'll build it just like the concept, but then they gave us the curveball there with the Ram, like you mentioned, and so now I don't know what to expect from them because. And they even like defended the whole bait and switch thing with the Ram recently. Their designer, their designer is awesome. He's the coolest guy and makes some amazing designs. So total respect to him. I say this with the utmost respect, but it's like they got the order wrong. Like they should have done the Ram concept after the Lightning version, essentially, with just putting the electric stuff in a regular Ram, and instead getting everyone all excited for a concept that's not happening. It just is crappy in my opinion. But anyway, as far as the Charger, now that has happened, I have no clue what to expect with the new Charger. It could go just like the concept, or it could essentially be the same exact Charger styling we have currently, and they just find some way to fit the new wheelbase in for the electric thing, and we'll have literally the same exact car, just with the electric battery underneath. It could go either way, or somewhere in the middle. We'll have to see. I have no clue. And as far as price goes, I have no clue on pricing. It'll obviously be more expensive than the current Charger. I would have to say that is, for even a four-door version, both two-door and four-door, they've probably got to start at 40 grand, and that's probably being generous. And they'll start off with the highest version that's crazy powerful and all that. So I'm sure the first versions will be probably almost 100 grand, but then hopefully they'll get some cheap stuff out eventually that's slower and more mainstream, and that'll come down to a more reasonable price. And let me see here. Copper says Infiniti's best era was the mid 2000s, the early 2010s. After that, they kind of fell apart. I agree. Jay says high gas prices will push consumers to EVs. Gas prices might hit $4 by the summer. Yeah, which is also, it's kind of funny because you want to, root for one side or the other, but then like the gas companies just like, it's like they're actually like handing over the win to the EVs, because like they said, like OPEC literally voted to decrease production of gas. Like if you want to keep gas around, you want to preserve your thing, you're going to want to make that as attractive as possible, not by making it more expensive, unless they're just trying to, squeeze every last penny they can before they have to go and acquire all the EV charging networks and just, or they're just trying to, have their one last, record profit before they end up fading off into the sunset. But yeah, that's like, that'd be like me being like, hey, my channel is struggling. So you know how I want to save my channel? I'm going to charge you to watch every single video. Like that makes it so much less attractive. Like it just kills you off so much faster. So like why they're like, hey, like more and more people are going away from gas. You know what we should do? Let's make gas less attractive and make it extremely expensive so that everyone then wants those EVs. Like it almost seems like they actually want to like see themselves fail. Maybe there's some ulterior motive, or I have no clue. But yeah, dumbest decision by OPEC there, in my opinion. I mean, again, I'm not some economist or any kind of expert by any means, but it seems real dumb if you're trying to save your butt to make it less attractive. Dylan says, what do you think of Hyundai's new trucks? I mean, the Santa Cruz is awesome. I'm excited to see what they do after that. But yeah, and also Truck and Car Guy, thank you so much for gifting another 10 memberships this week. It's so generous of you. And so anyone who doesn't have their gifting on, make sure you have that turned on so you can grab this. But I think we got them all grabbed here potentially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. Yeah, everyone snapped them up. Thank you so much for the generosity, Truck and Car Guy. I really appreciate it. And thanks for joining here in the live stream as well. I'll get back here so I don't miss any questions. Omar says, Matt, have you seen the rumored Model 3 refresh? Looks like it has the Roadster headlights. Yeah, so I actually just covered it in my weekly update on Friday, and I give all my thoughts on it there. But I think it looks good. I think it's an improvement over the current Model 3, which I still don't like the looks of personally. So to me, it's an upgrade for sure. And yeah, I can check out that video for all the thoughts on that. Dom says, are there any EV road trip planners? Not an app, but people. That's a good question. I don't know if there's anyone that does that. I think most people just probably are so used to just, doing it on their phones now. And honestly, like, what I use is a better route planner is what it's called. And it charts it out for you. And you can customize it and say, okay, this is the car I'm driving. This is the temperature I'm driving at this day. So that it can properly judge how long your battery will actually go. And it has all the charging stations. It figures out what charging stations work with just your car. And whenever I did our road trip last fall, I like printed that out as well, just as a backup in case something went down on the phone, or in case one of the other map applications wanted to be weird and take me somewhere else. I'd be like, nope, like here's the address for the next charger I need to get to, and just manually override that stuff. And Adam says the lightning drama was Tyler Hoover, which wasn't surprising given the type of videos he makes. It was very uneducated, like a horse-drawn carriage owner slamming the Model T. That was the consensus that I came to as well. But again, I don't want to throw shade in the live stream here, even though it's so hard not to. But yeah, there's a lot of that's been happening, and it's very profitable, and it resonates with a certain demographic and a certain audience. So they will continue to do it as long as they continue to get clicks, and that's all it is for a lot of people. And again, it's I have to say it's worth highlighting the downsides just as a worst case scenario. So okay, well, this is how bad it can get, but that's not the common experience, And I think they kind of paint it out like, well, this is why this stuff is terrible. When it's like, no, like it's you could kind of construct the same failures for a gas vehicle in certain ways if you really wanted to. And Class X is I'm signing off. I've got great pics of the car with wheels and tires on. Okay, so you guys are talking about something else there, I see. So Gladdy, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, why not a 2.5T in the Genesis G70? Good question. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't fit. I'm not sure why they even put the 2.5T in there. It's a very good question. I wish they would because that would be great. I mean, I guess it should fit because it fits in the Stinger, which shares a lot with the G70. So I would assume it would fit. Um, I'm not sure. I wish I knew the answer to that, but I do not. It's a good question. Maybe they'll do it someday. It seems like Genesis did say they're committed to the sedan segment and smaller sedans especially as well. So I think we can count on a new generation G70, and hopefully that will have the 2.5T, unless they just go full EV with it. We'll have to see. Um, and let me see here some of the questions. Um, thank you so much for joining. It says, "Hey Matt, happy Sunday. Hope you and the family are doing well." We are. Thanks for asking, and thanks for joining in. And yeah, Dom says, "Shout out to the truck and car guy for supporting the community." I know, I really appreciate it, and that's so kind of you. Um, and let me see here. Dylan says, "I'm very happy I'm not sitting on the road for 13 hours this year during my road trip. Whatever rental is given at the airport, I hope it has ventilated rear seats." Ventilated rear seats, that's a rare thing. I feel like this, with the Palisade, Telluride, few luxury sedans, but ventilated rear seats is rare these days. Groth Rocker says, "The problem with Infiniti, they changed their alpha numeric names a few times. Also, they gave it up in many ways. Example, G35, awesome car in the 2000s, but following, then it was called the Q60. Yeah, there's some of those things, but I think the naming thing doesn't really hurt it too much. I think some of it was just the way they made the changes, and I think they also just got more expensive, and I think that also kind of hurt them a little bit. Because I feel like I remember the G35s being like a really good deal when they were first coming out and like being the value player. And I think they kind of gave up the whole value thing for a while. They kind of come back to it now, and I think it's like this. Even though they don't advertise it as being more of a value play, I think if you go to a dealer, you'll probably get a much better deal on a Q50 than you will on take your pick at any other, compact luxury sedan. But yeah, I don't know. I think that they did a few different things wrong. I think they were slow to adopt new technology. It took them forever to get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in their vehicles when everyone else was integrating it pretty quickly for the most part, and just also I think the other stuff just ended up being a lot more awesome recently. You had faster BMWs coming out, and with the 335s and stuff really being a strong competitor. And I think it's just, there's a lot of things I think that went into it, but hopefully they'll find their way back. Sean says, "Will the Integra Type S get an auto/DCT option?" Who knows? I mean, I think my pessimistic, hunch is that it probably will never be able to justify doing anything beyond what the Type R has. And I don't know if there's an engineering reason why the 10-speed doesn't fit. I'm hoping to go on the Integra Type S launch event. And I'm hoping that if I do go on that, that's one of the questions that myself and I'm sure many others are going to ask. And I'd like to talk to an engineer and be like, is there a good reason why? I would assume it's just I'm guessing the 10-speed doesn't fit in that platform potentially because, there's no 10-speed in any of the Civics or anything like that also shares that platform. It's all CVT. And I'm sure they wouldn't want to, they probably can't even do a CVT that can handle that kind of power. So my guess is it's probably an engineering thing, or just they couldn't, because I think almost certainly the automatic would make sense to offer from a cost standpoint. If it was something they could engineer in, they would, increase their sales so much. So I would say there's probably some engineering reason why they're not doing it. Two, thanks for joining. And it says, "Hey Matt," and Ace of Spades says, "I would still suggest to watch the Strad videos. It wasn't clickbait and it wasn't all on him. The charging failures he had continuously on the way back weren't his fault." Okay, well, yeah, charging failures is definitely something we see in a lot of vehicles, and that's something that, yeah, definitely needs to be worked out. The charging infrastructure it needs to be 100% reliable. Like the fact that it's not totally reliable is just inexcusable, and that is one big problem for sure. And so some of that goes down to the car. Sometimes the cars don't interface well with the charger, but otherwise, a lot of the times it's just the charger being crappy, and that's something, I don't know why that's so hard to figure out. Like, why can't it be as simple as a gas pump? But yeah, it's unfortunate that there are some issues there. So yeah, I'll definitely check out the video. And I don't want to prejudge, and again, I don't know him, so I can't say anything. But it's just a trend that I've been seeing in others where there's a lot of people that are making videos about how terrible EVs are. But you can tell if you've been on a road trip in an EV before, or if you know what you need to do things properly. It's a lot of things that are either easy mistakes that they should have done a little research to avoid, or things that are just things that you don't have to do, that they just end up doing, just weird things just to make it seem worse than it is. But anyway, Dorian says my 718 Boxster has a 550-mile range and weighs a flat 3,000 pounds. It's also recharges in 2 minutes from 1%. Yeah, and that's why, yeah, for certain people, that's always going to make the most sense, and there's no issues with that. I mean, again, everyone has different things they like, and that's why it's all about choice, in my opinion. Two says, waiting for you to talk about the special door handles TRD has for the Tacoma. I haven't seen that. Yeah, I don't know if you're just making a joke or what, but looking forward to see the new Tacoma soon. Omar says, will Apple CarPlay one day be more integrated into EVs? For example, monitor the battery life, or will automakers block that? That's something that's already possible, actually. So I think it's only with the Mach-E, actually, but with Apple Maps now, it interfaces with the Mach-E, and it will adjust your routing based on your charge, and it knows your charge, and it will tell you this is the charge you're going to have when you get there to your destination. And if you try and do multiple waypoints, it'll automatically plug in the charges. Be like, okay, here's your chargers. And it was doing that back in the fall. I actually did that whenever I was on a road trip. I was running the trip planner app. I was running Apple Maps, which again was tied into the car, and knew how much charge that had. So I was able to kind of get multiple opinions as far as where I should stop, what the best place to charge is, and all that. And I think the Apple Maps is also updated with what is currently available, but also, I'd be on PlugShare and I'd check out, I actually like research each of these charging stations, like you're going to a new restaurant or something, like, okay, what are the reports at this charging station? Is this one reliable? Is it crap? PlugShare will tell you. I mean, the community is great. They'll be like, this one doesn't work, or one of the ones is down, or it said this charger was available, but the whole thing's under construction, or there's all those types of things. So it's like going to a new restaurant. You got to do your research ahead of time and know the chargers you're going to, and will they give you good service. And obviously there's still can be things that can go awry, and you could be the first person that shows up and it doesn't work right. But PlugShare helped me to avoid, I think, some headaches on our road trip last fall for sure. And Double Strike Photo says, once Infiniti switched to the all-Q naming, it was already over. They really need to bring back the Gatling gun headlights from the Q45. I love those headlights. Those were so cool. Those, yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. 100%. Bring those back. That was a cool design. Red Yoshi says, is there any fun cars around 25 to 35 grand you would get as a fun sporty car to mod again, outside of having your Bullet? Yeah, I mean, GR86, BRZ, one of those all day, any day. I would happily love to get one of those again. Otherwise, Miata's a great choice. But for me, I don't think it'd be something I'd want to mod. I'm kind of over the whole mod thing myself. So, it'd be something I would just keep stock and just have for fun. But yeah, there's a few like fun project ideas I have every once in a while where I'm like, that'd be kind of a fun thing to build. But then I'm like, oh wait, I don't have any time to do anything anymore, and I'm super busy all the time. And yeah, it's just like way down there in the priority list as far as Project Car, because something would be fun to try out, but just no time to do it. And Goth Rocker says, guys, my neighbor has an EV. Actually, it's a Mach-E. In the winter weather, it really did affect his range. I live in PA, and this winter hasn't been that bad. He's older, so he does have the heat blasting. Yeah, and I mean, our Mach-E too. I mean, I can tell you, I think so during the wintertime, that's our car. It's rated 227 miles of range, I think. And it was telling me, I think 130 miles during the coldest part of the winter. So, I mean, literally, you're almost sitting at, not quite half, but close. And so, I mean, yeah, that's a totally well-established thing with EVs. They do drop a lot. And I saw that, and I was fully expecting that, fully prepared for it, and didn't bat an eye when it was telling me 130 miles. It's obviously, again, if you do long drives, it's not for you. But if you, like for us, we drive, 10 miles a day tops in the Mach-E. I don't care. So we blast the heat, blast everything, and, kill the range even more, because who cares? Because it's, 130 miles is plenty to do everything we need to do in a day before we plug it in at night. So all comes down to, your individual needs. Red Yoshi says, last gen or current gen for the BRZ and 86. Either gen is great, but I think the newest one is the more fun one. So that would be the one that, if money allows, I'd go for one of those. But you definitely, I think, have more aftermarket support with the old gen. So that's, another thing to take into consideration for sure. And Alexander Mill Sr. says, what about Infiniti's CVTs? Which ones had CVTs? I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on which Infinitis had them. Maybe someone else can chime in on that one because I'm blanking on that. But that could also be part of the reason why Infiniti was struggling a little bit with some of those. I think so. Wait, wasn't it the QX60 that had a CVT, right? That certainly didn't help the QX60's case for sure compared to some of the others. And VQ's also chiming in about the as far as the Integra, maybe because they can't add the LSD to the 10-speed automatic. Totally possible. That could be another reason as far as engineering reason for why there's no 10-speed in the Type S Integra. Totally could be. Mike says they could have used the 10-speed, or if they couldn't use the 10-speed, they could have had the old 8-speed DCT from the ILX. They could have maybe polished. Yeah, I guess possibly. I don't know what the deal is with that DCT, that Acura. I mean, it sounds promising. I've never driven an ILX, so it's one of those cars I've been wanting so badly to drive. Because to me, like a DCT Civic Si sounds like music to my ears, but I feel like ILX has never sold as well as they should have. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, my guess is that DCT probably couldn't handle that much power. And yeah, you can maybe polish it up like you said, but I mean, to go from something that handles 200 horsepower to something that handles 320 horsepower is a lot of re-engineering. And from what I've heard, I think ILXs can't really handle any power increases. So that DCT is probably already maxed out even at 200 horsepower. So yeah, I think that may be the problem there. I guess it just was cheaper just to stick with what was already around than re-engineer a DCT just for that car. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, I agree. I drove the Infiniti Q60. Great coupe, great looking. It was priced wrong. All I'm saying, it seems once they did the alphanumeric change, their sales went downward. 2000s, they did well. Yeah. And I think I think you saw the decline of Nissan, whenever you saw the decline of Infiniti as well. And so I think being attached to Nissan certainly didn't help them either there. And because I think Nissan's really fallen from grace compared to what they used to be in a lot of ways as well. So I think there was some of that possibly even going on too. Adam says, Matt, based on your recent videos, I think your new niche should be short new car release overviews and CarPlay rants. Yeah, thank you guys for watching those videos this past week. This week was a really good week for me from a view standpoint, which is a nice change from the way things have been going recently. So yeah, that was great to see the Integra video doing really well. But the funny thing, so this is the goofy thing about YouTube and being a YouTuber that's frustrating is, that Integra video that I did that just like, I got the information ahead of time from Acura, which is really nice. And I only do those news videos whenever I get information ahead of time, because otherwise I'm scrambling and I'm already behind everyone else that got the early info. So I don't even bother unless I get the embargo information sent to me from the manufacturer. And so, Acura sent that over. I was like, okay, cool. I'll do a video on this, because it's sporty and I know many of you would be interested in it. And I did that just like I did, the same kind of videos on like the Toyota Crown, CRV, but I even did it on like the Charger last year and, some other stuff. And all of those, didn't do anything. I mean, they did fine, like 10,000 views or something like that. And I was expecting, okay, well, it's an easy 3-minute video to make, 10,000 views or whatever. It makes sense to do this. And then it just blows up. And I think the only reason why is because for some reason, no one else like really covered it. It was like me, Joe Rady, and Kurt Kreifels were like the only 3 like bigger YouTubers that even bothered to mention it. Everyone else just like did an Instagram post. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I think it just kind of reminded me that like, when my channel was at its peak was when I had less competition. And it just, it's just tough with competition these days. And so whenever I have a video come out, it's nothing special, but I have a video come out that only 2 other people did a video on, basically, of course it's going to get good views. And so it really wasn't a mystery for that one, but I just had no clue that no one else was planning on covering it for some reason. But yeah, so that's the power of no competition, I think, is the takeaway there as far as the Integra video. And as far as the CarPlay thing, it's another one that no one else is really covering it. And that was news that, again, came out, on March 31st. I was like, maybe this is too old to even cover. But then I searched on YouTube and like no one had really done a video on it. There was lots of articles, but no one had done a video basically that was even, from a larger outlet. Basically, there was, nothing. So I was like, okay, well, I'll fill this niche since no one else is talking about it. And that, is done pretty decently as well. So just that's the thing, is just trying to find stuff where no one else is competing. That's why I want to get back to the used car reviews again and get back to older stuff, because competing on the new stuff is kind of a waste of time for me, unfortunately. I worked so hard to do the Ioniq 6 video, the Prius Prime video, the Corolla Cross Hybrid, and the CX90. The CX90 is doing okay. Prius Prime is doing okay. But like the Ioniq 6 was an actual waste of time, unfortunately. Like I enjoyed doing it. It was fun driving with Kirk. That has like less than 5,000 views. Like the amount of money I make off a 5,000 view video for me to fly to Arizona, fly, and spend 3 days, basically lose three out on 3 days of work, 1 day flying, 1 day driving, another day flying home all the way from Arizona for a 5,000 view video, like that is a waste of time. So for example, don't expect to see any more Ioniq 6 coverage from me until the end version, because that video bombed so badly that it's like, okay, none of my audience wants to see that, so I'm going to not cover it anymore. But so it's just trying to be smart about my time, and it's one of the things that you never know. Like I thought the Ioniq 6 would have a decent chance, and turns out it did not. So that's why trying to do lower effort stuff makes a lot more sense. So I think Beth just texted me that maybe there's some memberships still out there that someone can grab. I'm not sure. I kind of 10 before, but maybe I missed something there. If there's any out there, make sure everyone's got their gifting on for sure. Let me see though. Other questions. Angel says Google Maps is a similar thing to give you the best range, whether gas or electric or hybrid. Yeah, I saw how Google Maps does that eco routing thing or whatever, which is really smart. Yeah, even if you're trying to save some money on gas, it's great that they do that. So talking about, I see Dorian and Yoshi talking about the GR86, and yeah, Yoshi, I covered the new ones for sure. So if you want to get any info on those, all the videos are out there on that. All right, so let me see some other discussion going here. Raphael says, I think you're doing it right. You have a Mach-E and a Bullet. I'd like to have my Camry and an e-tron GT. That would be a fun combo for sure. And so Dylan says, what do you think of the new F-150 Lightning? I think they're great. I did a video on one last year. I think it makes a lot of sense to do something that's familiar, that people like the packaging of the F-150 already, and just offering the electric version there for those who want to go for it. So I think it's really smart the way they did that. And I think that's why Dodge or Ram copied them with the new Ram there, because it's probably a solid formula that I think will work for them as well. Two says that one Honda engineer who has designed a DCT for the Type R is screaming from the basement to put it in the Integra. I'm sure there's all kinds of dreams and plans from all kinds of engineers that would love to do all kinds of cool stuff if they could actually get the funding for it. Elijah says, I often watch your videos on my Xbox without being logged in, as well as watch on my phone while being logged in. Do those both count for views? Yeah, any view counts as a view. I think unless you click away in less than 3 or 5 seconds, I'm not sure how long you have to actually watch before YouTube counts it, but it's pretty short. So yeah, everything counts as a view. If you're watching it, it counts, no matter what. And so I appreciate any and all views. It always helps for sure. And a Double Strike Photo says, if people didn't watch the Ioniq 6 video, they need to answer it to me personally. Yeah, it's just, trying to go for the mass appeal and like Challenger Chris says, breaking news sells. It definitely does. And I totally understand that. And so that's why, whenever I can get that, embargoed information ahead of time to actually have it whenever it's breaking, that's where I'm able to do that. Because a lot of times there are some things where like I could maybe chase the ball a little bit if my video comes out an hour later. If it's something that's pretty quick and easy, I can do something super fast. But a lot of times I'm not at my computer, or if I'm flying to Arizona to drive the Ioniq 6 and then some other new car comes out, then it's like, okay, well, I'm currently in an airport, and unless I do some really rough live stream or some type of quick little like one-shot video in an airport or something, like there's just no way to cover that fast enough. So I do miss out on a lot of stuff just because I'm so busy with traveling or just doing whatever, that I miss out on some of that stuff. But I love when manufacturers send me the embargo stuff ahead of time, because one, it's kind of fun to be like, ooh, I'm seeing the Integra divest before everybody else, but also just because it makes it so much easier to make these videos and do them effectively. Dorian says, I wish there was a source or update for dealers that would sell an Integra S or Type R or GR Corolla for MSRP. Yeah, I think, I don't know about all communities, but I know, like, for example, with the Mach-E, when I was, ordering that now about a year and a half ago, there was like a running Google Doc of like, here's all the dealers that charge markups and here's the ones that don't. I don't know if that's much of a thing for some of these other, cars, but I would certainly try and search like a Type R forum, an Integra S forum, GR Corolla forum, anything like that, and see if anyone's compiled a list like that. Because I feel like there's at least, I've seen other forums at least have a blacklist of like crappy dealers to at least avoid. So you minimizes your calling a little bit there. If, there's ones that everyone knows are crappy, you can skip those ones automatically and just go to other ones. But anyway, so Dom says, have you talked about the pull and play video yet? I have not. So yeah, the pull part video I'll be doing here on it'll be posted probably on Monday. Those of you who are members saw the schedule here I posted yesterday. So yeah, that'll be a fun video. I'm curious to see how that does. But so if you follow me on Instagram too, I also did a little preview shot. Pull apart tagged me in a video of me filming on the lot. I was just doing a junkyard walk, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, just to try out, because I've always been fascinated by used stuff that ends up in the junkyard and how they ended up there, and just what's actually there. And it's really fascinating what I saw. So you'll see on tomorrow what I found at this lot. It's so many fascinating things, cars that shouldn't be there that are, cars that I'm amazed that they are there, because I would have thought that some of the stuff I found I thought would have been cold back whenever Cash for Clunkers happened, over a decade ago. But yet there's some of these things that lasted and didn't get sold off back then when they should have, probably for way more money, and they ended up there now. And yeah, it's really fascinating. So we'll see. That's going to be another one that I'd like to do more junkyard walks. We'll see how that video does tomorrow. If it actually does well, 100%, I will do way more of those, because I love doing them. There's so much fun to be out there discovering all these old vehicles and just seeing some crazy stuff too, like some just crashed vehicles, like all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of fun and something different for me. It was kind of fun, and also way easier to edit than a car review. So I would love to do more of those. We will see, though. The views will be the ultimate dictator, like they always are. And Luke, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hi, Matt. If both are 60 grand, should I go with a manual 2023 Supra or a high mileage Audi R8 V8 manual? Both are a big stretch for me, but you live once. I totally agree with that philosophy. Tomorrow's never guaranteed. Go and have your fun, as long as it's, doable. But as far as your question, I didn't realize that R8 manuals were that cheap. That's impressive. I guess it comes down to what your risk tolerance is. Because if the Audi R8 has an extended warranty, then I guess it's not the end of the world, as long as you're okay with a little bit of extra hassle. If it doesn't have an extended warranty, make sure, if you're already stretching yourself, I would probably advise against getting one without a warranty, just because stuff on those can get expensive quick. So it's going to come down to that, what your risk tolerance is, and if it has an extra warranty on it. If it does not, or you want something that's just going to work every time you hop in, go for the Supra. The Supra is fantastic fun. It'll probably feel faster, honestly, than the R8 V8 manual. But obviously, that's just such a cool experience with the mid-engine thing and the gated manual you get in those, and obviously the supercar looks and stuff. That's a tough decision, but yeah, I don't know. I think if it were me personally, 60 grand, I'd probably go for the Supra. I also tend to like newer cars just in general, just for a variety of reasons: reliability, safety, just tech, that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, I'd probably go Supra, but you can't go wrong with either one, though. They're both going to be a ton of fun. Just again, make sure you got enough budget to fix the Audi if you're going to go for one without a warranty. And Elijah says, do you think the 2023 Volkswagen Arteon R-Line is a good deal for 20 grand? Wow. Yeah, if you can get one for 20,000, I would say yes, that is a good deal. Arteons are great cars. Another very underappreciated car. You got the hatchback versatility. They're super comfortable. I mean, talk about a great road tripper. I mean, that thing, you could drive across the country in that thing and probably not even feel phased, because it's so comfortable. And the R-Line version, I haven't driven the new one, but they have the punchier motor. I think they have basically like the Golf R motor in them now, right, for 2023 for the R-Line. So basically a comfier, more practical, but heavier Golf R. Sign me up. And if it's 20 grand, I don't know where you're finding one for 20 grand, but if you can find one for 20 grand, yes, definitely buy it and flip it and make 10 grand, if nothing else, because you could easily sell that for 30 grand, probably at the drop of a hat. But yeah, I would definitely go for that for sure. So Luke says, the maintenance on the Audi scares me and rear-wheel drive of the Supra scares me. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know if this is actually realistic, but if you can get a C8 Corvette, you kind of best of both worlds, and a little bit of, kind of having the mid-engine thing, having a reliable V8 that should be pretty solid. You kind of got the best of both experiences. And I would say the C8 Corvette also feels very safe the way they set it up, where it's almost like understeery with how conservative they tuned the base C8. So I have no clue if you can actually get one of those for 60 grand still, but even like a used one's probably more than that. But if you can, might be another consideration. Again, just throwing that out there. But I would say, as far as rear-wheel drive scaring, I mean, I don't know how experienced you are with rear-wheel drive. Super can definitely be sketchy if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're pushing it more than your comfort level and skill level allows. But I think if you want something that's a little more um, approachable, you could start with like a GR86, something like that, and then work your way up if you really do want to get into the super there. But the Audi is great as well. And I think with those, that 4.2 liter V8, from what I remember, is fairly reliable. So, if you get one with good maintenance records and stuff, I would like to think that it will be hopefully okay for the most part. I think most of the time, though, with that German used stuff, it's just minor electrical gremlins, which aren't the end of the world, but I guess some of those things could end up, disabling the car if it's some complicated system that everything's tied in together or something. But yeah, it's a tough decision there between those two. I can see your dilemma. I wish I had better advice for you, but I will also say, with the rear-wheel drive and the Supra, leave on the traction control, leave on the stability control, and just learn the car. And I think if you do that, you won't be as scared of the Supra. And I think if you can afford to, take it to a track day. I think Toyota actually still throws in, that's was just the first year, but I think they still do any GR product. I think you get 1 day of free high performance driving education. And I'd have to look into the fine print of that, but I think they still do that, if I remember correctly. So if that's the case, you can take your Supra to a track, have an instructor walk you through it, talk you through how to lap this thing, how to drive it safely, and that'll help increase your confidence a lot. Because I will say that I was a little bit scared of high horsepower rear-wheel drive stuff for a while as well. And something obviously with experience that really helps, but also all the driving schools I did really helped increase my confidence and my skill level, so that I could actually, not only just have the confidence, but have the know-how of, how weight transfer affects things, and, what you can and can't get away with, in a lot of these vehicles, and how to be respectful of their limits and kind of feel their limits a little bit better. So I would highly recommend, if you can, spend a few bucks and go to some driving school, like I did Bondurant, I did, was the other one, Skip Barber, I did the Cadillac V Academy, and a couple others. They really do help with giving you some extra confidence there, and just make you a better driver overall too. And let me see other questions here. Dylan says, have you done a long road trip in the new Grand Wagoneer L? No. And I was originally going to have a Grand Wagoneer L scheduled. I didn't think it would do very well views wise, but I thought it was potentially something that could be of value to cover the new engine in it, because that engine's been rumored now is going to go into the Charger and Challenger or something, in this new generation. So I was going to maybe just try it out just for the engine, but then they ended up having to pull it, and I was fine with that because, again, that video probably wouldn't have done well anyway. So not sure if I'll ever drive a Grand Wagoneer L, but I did the regular Grand Wagoneer, pretty similar aside from the engine difference there, but really nice vehicles for sure. Kyle says, if you have 60 grand, get the Audi RS3. That blue one Matt had was so nice. If you want something more practical, RS3, yes, is so much fun. Very good way to spend 60 grand as well. Dorian says, Super makes more sense now that I think about it. It's really easy to fix. Yeah, could be for sure. I mean, obviously you have the BMW stuff in those too, so there's still some stuff with those too. But let me see. Austin here says, do you think Camaro will come back as a 7th gen? Also, do you think it's possible for brands to make their own manual transmission sports cars with a hybrid while keeping the V8 like Koenigsegg did? It's totally possible for sure. You've seen, like, there was even way back when, like the Honda, CRZ that had the manual with the hybrid. Those types of things are totally possible. It's just a little more complicated, but they can do it for sure. And as far as the Camaro coming back for a 7th gen, they were very vague with what they said. They were saying the Camaro's story isn't over, which to me just seems like they're really teeing up for an SUV or a sedan or something different. So, I don't know. I'd like to think that there'll be a 7th gen that comes back at some point that's still a 2-door coupe with a V8 engine under the hood. But, these days I can't be optimistic about that. So, well, we'll just have to see what they end up doing. So Luke says, it's coming from a front-wheel drive tuned 10th gen Civic Si with 300 horsepower. Okay, so yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a totally different kind of thing. So if you've never driven rear-wheel drive, it's just something you got to learn. I would highly recommend going for, yeah, a driving school to kind of get your confidence up a little bit if you're gonna go rear-wheel drive anything. Because even the R8, I mean, if you don't know what you're doing in that, I mean, it's also very safe. But anything, if you're in a rear-wheel drive car and you punch it mid-corner in the rain and anything rear-wheel drive, you're gonna get a little bit of oversteer basically. So it's just something you got to make sure that you know what you're doing a little bit. And let me see here. It says also my end goal is a gated manual Lamborghini Gallardo, so the V8 would, or the R8 would be a baby version of that. And so if that's kind of one of your goals too, that kind of is a cool way to achieve that goal before the ultimate goal there. So that could be fun. So yeah, I mean, I would say it sounds like maybe the R8 might be the better choice for you. Just again, make sure that you're comfortable with the maintenance costs and look into what it costs to fix things and look at the mileage of the ones you're looking at and the service records and also just the intervals as far as when belts need to be replaced, when things need to be replaced. Are those things hard to swap in an R8? Are they easy? What can you do yourself? What can't you? Those types of things, to really kind of investigate all that and see if it'll be something that's not going to make you broke. And then if it is, don't let it become a money pit. Just walk away from it if you can. If it does, turn out badly instead of letting it, bleed you dry. And Goth Walker says the Audi is super expensive for maintenance and insurance is very high. Insurance could be another thing, but I think super insurance probably isn't super cheap either, especially with the short wheelbase. I feel like there's a decent amount of people that do get themselves into trouble in the Supra. And he says insurance is cheaper on the R8 than the Supra. That's cool. And I think honestly, part of that might also be the tech. I know so many insurance companies are just like with all the sensors in the front of these vehicles, even a light ding takes out those sensors and you have a minor bumper, thousands and thousands of dollars if you can even get the parts, that whole kind of thing. So I think, yeah, you probably see a lot of stuff that you think would be expensive that's older that's just cheaper these days because it doesn't have a million sensors in the front of it. So good point there, and thanks for educating all of us on all that, Luke. It's very very interesting to spend other people's money as far as giving opinions, but hopefully you can find something that works for you. And congrats and you being able to even afford one or the other. That's a very good position to be in, and so enjoy the shopping as much as you can. And let me see other questions here. Hugo says, going to be on the market for a mid-sized truck here. Which one would you get out of all of them? I'm going to have to say wait until everything new comes out this year. I'm going to be driving the Colorado this year, the Canyon, and the Tacoma. I'm hoping, this year as well. So, once the end of this year has happened and everything's come out that's going to be coming out here, basically the new Range is probably going to be coming here soon too. We got a lot of new stuff coming. So I would say wait and see what comes out this year, unless you want old tech. If you're, you see what the new stuff offers and you're not into that stuff, then go out and grab one of the last Tacomas or whatever and, get one of the old ones. But I think for me, it's just, I got to wait and see what all the new stuff offers before I can say definitively. If you want to just stay right now in this moment, not knowing anything about the new Tacoma, not having driven the Colorado or the Canyon or the new Ranger or anything, I would say right now, powertrain wise, my favorite current truck is the Ranger. From a all around standpoint, if you don't care about having the utmost safety, I would say Frontier is actually really impressive. Great tech, great price. Still has a solid V6, and they really, I think, improved the looks and everything. I really like the new Frontier a lot, and they can if you can get a good deal on one, better than some of the others out there, I think that could be a really solid choice too. And also just so happens the Frontier is basically the freshest one out there as of right now, not counting the Colorado and the Canyon. So yeah, that would, I guess, be my pick right now if that helps. And Adam says, my friend just bought an RS3 and says the best car he's ever driven in that price range, which is in line with what many reviewers have said. If I needed a gas car, that's what I would get. Yeah, they are fantastic. Congrats to your friend for getting one. I have a friend that has one on order, and talked to a few other people at Cars and Coffee last year that had them and absolutely love them as well. Steven says, hey, Matt, once my 1 month gifted membership is over, will it just take the monthly fee out automatically, or how does it work? I want to pay the monthly. Well, thanks for wanting to be a member. As far as the gifted memberships, it does not have your info, I'm pretty sure. So I do not think it can charge you. I certainly hope it doesn't. It should not automatically charge anyone for anything unless you have opted into that. So I think you have to probably wait till the gifted membership is over and then rejoin, and put in all your info and then sign up that way. And I think that's how that works. It should not be pulling anything automatically. So also just a PSA there for anyone else that got a gifted membership. It just expires whenever the month is done, and then you're free to either join on your own or wait for another gift or just go without. But it's totally up to you. But it should not do anything automatically. And all right, so it sounds like, thanks for the comments, guys. Jay and Goth says the feed is lagging and audio is having issues. So let me know if there's anything I need to repeat there. If anyone's questions did not get answered. I guess I'll wait and see if anyone else comments here how it's going. I can't really see any kind of like feed health on my thing, so I'm not sure. Everything looks okay to me, but maybe something has screwed up. If anyone else can give me any kind of update here, I'll keep an eye on the comments. Okay, Rafi says it seems fine to him. So, okay, I think we're good. Hopefully all just counts as a first profit. Now it's fine on my end. All right, sweet. Thanks, guys. So let me see other questions here. And car in an all-wheel drive, a V8 engine sedan car. It'd be fun, but it's just no one buys sedans anymore, and so it's just one of those things it's very tough to justify unless you're Dodge. They were able to find that sweet spot of cheap old platform, existing engines basically, and they were able to just milk it out for all these years. And that's the only reason why I think the Charger stuck around as long as it did, is because it just was something that was paid off a long time ago, and it was just pure profit after I don't know, for a few years. And so it was just something that was basically free to keep around. But you saw everyone else try, and all the other sedans have gone away for the most part, because it just comes down to what people buy. That's why I talked to Mazda's engineers when I was on the CX-90 event, and everyone's like, we want to see this engine in a Mazda 6. And Mazda's like, yeah, we'd love to do that too. Tell people to buy sedans. That's what they said. They said, tell your viewers, saying that Mazda 3 sales have been dropping off, and just in industry in general, it's dropped off to the point where for Mazda, they can't justify doing that. There you go. You gotta buy someone else's sedan, I guess, in the meantime, or buy a Mazda 3, turbo or something like that, to send the message that you want something more expensive from Mazda in a sedan form, and then hopefully maybe that will send the message. But I don't know if we're beyond the point of no return for that or not, but they seemed open to it if the market changed. So let me see here. Seems like everyone's doing okay now as far as the audio issues. And Challenger Chris says, my first live, long-time subscriber, thinking about jumping in on the membership. I always appreciate the support, but hopefully I can get to as many questions here from non-members as I can. But it's always appreciated for sure. And it's also cool. You get the other perks of seeing like what's coming. I have my schedule. I'll post up, about once a month or so of all the new vehicles that I'll be reviewing for that next month, and some other behind the scenes stuff every once in a while that I do as well. All right. So it seems like other people are having the issue. Maybe it's a YouTube thing then, where people are saying they exit and come back. Say it keeps freezing. Okay. I don't know why it keeps freezing, because it's not telling me there's any issues here. I'm not sure what the deal is. I wish I knew. So I think should be good. My internet seems to be okay. All the comments from you guys are coming in okay, so I definitely have an internet connection. Okay, so I'm not sure. That's a bummer. It's not working great for everyone here. So let me see. Seems like, yeah, I just got slow for a few sections, or for a few seconds, and now it's okay. So, all right, cool. Refreshing it fixed it for some of you. So maybe try that if you're having an issue. Just try the refresh there. Mike says, will EVs make performance cars cheaper 100%, or just on the low end you can get a EV6 GT line for like what, 58 grand, and then EV6 GT is like 63. Model 3 Performance is like 54 grand. I don't know about whether it'll make performance stuff cheaper. I think it will. I don't know about performance vehicles in particular, but I think it will make it'll bring speed down to a lower price point, if that makes sense. Like even an Equinox EV is going to have 200 horsepower for 25 grand. Most other cars for 25 grand do not have, any kind of 200 horsepower setup in them. So, I guess Equinox is 30, so maybe a little closer there. But, as we start seeing stuff going cheaper and cheaper, if they keep those power levels higher, because it doesn't cost as much, with the electric motors, it's something that you could see, a lot more people having more horsepower than they ever did before. We'll see about the other stuff like the Model 3, how long that lasts, that 54 grand price point. And we're seeing, all these other is going to make it much cheaper or not. It's an interesting thought. I'm inclined to think that it's just going to, still always stay at that price premium. And Dom says, what car are you most excited about for the next years? It's hard to pick just one. I don't know. It's a good question. I have to sit here and think about it for a second. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's gonna be really cool if they're doing some type of real exhaust with actual pipes, and you have, the really cool looks, in my opinion. They're out of the ordinary and out of the box thinking as far as, how they're going about sound in that car, how they're going about like their vibrations and just tech and power and all the different things they're playing feature wise for that. I think that's one of the ones that I don't know. I'm really fascinated to see how they make enthusiast EVs and how that develops. Is everything just going to be silent, and is that going to end up being like the most popular thing, or is it going to be like what Dodge is doing with this thing with an exhaust? And you see, like, I'm also very curious to see how the Ioniq 5N turns out, because they're adding in fake shifting into that, and I'm hoping to try that this year. I'm so excited to drive that car because it's got fake shifts, fake sounds, and I think they said even fake vibrations to make it a little more raw feeling. And it's just cool creativity. The engineers never had to come up with that creative of an idea. It was like, oh, this thing has a V8. Let's make it loud. We'll put flaps in the exhaust. And that was like a big development. And now it's like they're really being challenged with like, how do we do different things? How do we solve these problems in better ways, in different ways? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Is it just going to feel like a knockoff of the real thing? Or is it going to be better than the real thing in some ways? It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. So I think some of that stuff where it's really pioneering brand new experiences that we've never had before and just new ways to do things, I think to me is the most fascinating thing to see, from someone who drives hundreds of cars a year. And, it's a lot of the other stuff. It's more the same old, same old. It's pretty predictable. I can tell you what this thing's going to feel like before I even drive it, because I know how this kind of a powertrain is going to feel and how this kind of car is going to feel. But whenever you're talking about all these new things and these new developments and new ways to play around with power distribution and all these things, it just really adds a lot more, interesting stuff to the equation that just to me makes it a little more fascinating. So I think that's kind of what I'm more excited about here going forward. Challenger Chris is kind of like a PlayStation steering wheel vibration feel. I think so, but I thought I remembered reading that they said there was going to be like other like vibration motors elsewhere in the vehicle. Like I thought I read somewhere, or maybe it was just a rumor, that they could be also in the seats and things like that as well, to just kind of give you like a sim racer kind of feel or something to it. I don't know. It's again, that's the thing, is they have endless possibilities with that. They could totally like do whatever they want to do basically. And so I think that's kind of what I'm most excited about. And Raphael says, I don't get it. With all the tech they come up with for cars, how is it so hard to make the sound of a V6 or V8? I think some of them have. I think it's just, I think some of them are nervous about just going there and just like having like a direct V8 knockoff sound in an EV. But I think Hyundai is one of the crazier ones, and Dodge probably will do it as well, where they'll probably have like a straight V8 soundtrack for some of the stuff. And I know Hyundai, whenever I was on the Elantra N launch back in the fall of 2021, they had in the RM20E concept, I drove it for one like little lap around an autocross course, which was basically an electric Veloster mid-engine test bed thing they had. That had speakers mounted to the back of it that were playing a V8 soundtrack. So I was accelerating in this thing with a V8 soundtrack while I was driving this little electric Veloster thing, which was a wild experience too, because they had turned down the power to like 700 horsepower or something. And it was only rear-wheel drive, and it was also on racing slicks. So I'm not very good at driving on racing tires. So it was one of those things where it's like, you have grip, now you have no grip. Just so I actually lost it once, and obviously I didn't like damage anything, but I just like actually like bumped over a few cones because it just like was a pretty wild experience there, and I was trying to push that a tiny bit more than I should have. But so I mean, anyway, Hyundai has put a V8 soundtrack in their electric. I mean, I'm guessing they're at least playing with the idea. It's just, again, do they want to go there? Do they actually want to go that crazy or turn it down a little bit? So we'll see. But it's totally possible for sure. And let me see. So Brian P says the amount of sound emitted from an engine would require speakers way more powerful than practical as well. You'll never get the dynamic same impact. Yeah, we'll see. I think Dodge is really trying that hard. We'll see. Yeah, and that's the thing, is it could totally crash and burn. The whole thing could be a terrible idea. It could all just suck. It's entirely possible. But it's one of those things that they've never had to try before, and they're trying it out. And for me, it's just exciting that it's new, and even if it crashes and burns, it's fun to see something different and out of the ordinary. So that's just my take on that. But and Eric thinks that EV cars and trucks will always be soulless. Yeah, it's just personal preference, and what people find fun. Some people, like different things, and it's just the way it is. Let me see here. Other questions. Chris, Dodge worked with the car's performance and kept the shell. Also kept a full price range for different, as far as the Chargers thing. Yeah, I think they really just marketed this Chargers Challenge perfectly, and I think it's going to be a masterclass for other car companies as far as how to, make a platform not only survive but to thrive to the point of, being. I mean, when the Challenger went out here, it's selling more than the Mustang in its last year of production. It's just crazy, and just can't give them enough credit for doing that. It's just wild. All right, so I think. Dylan says the stream's lagging again, so maybe we just cut this one off early if everyone's having some issues here. We've caught up with questions pretty well. I can scroll back up and see if there's some others that I wasn't able to get to from some non-members here. And all right, let me see. Broly says, how is Volkswagen GTI or GLI resale based on experience? From what I've seen, I mean, I think the GLI falls a little faster than the GTI just because it's a little less than for the GLI, but I'm not an expert on pricing for either of those, so I'm not the best person to ask for that, unfortunately. A while ago asked, what do you think about the TLX Type S? Seems to be massively unappreciated after it lost a few drag races on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of interest, at least on my channel. There's a lot of people still watch my TLX Type S review, pretty often still. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's still some people interested in it. But as far as, I mean, I love it. I think it's great. I thought the steering was almost Alfa Romeo good. I thought it was a really fun vehicle to take around back roads. I love the TLX in general. The Type S version was great. It felt a little heavy, and it wasn't perfect in all the ways. I still don't like the touchpad infotainment system. So there's still definitely some things that weren't perfect about it, but I think they're really solid. If you can get a good deal on one, and you don't mind the touchpad thing, and you are okay with the setup of the vehicle, I think it's great. I think it's a really solid thing on why they offer it. And if it's something that's not super popular, then hopefully it means it'll be a good used bargain as well. So let me see. I did miss a few member questions here. So I don't know how I missed that. Yeah, we missed a whole bunch of them, I guess. So sorry, I'm trying to go back here. I'm glad I scrolled up and was able to see these. So Dom said he's still doing car value videos. I kind of tabled those for now. I do have a bunch of other vehicles I'd like to do them on, but I don't have a ton of gaps in the schedule right now to do them. And they kind of filled out. I think it just comes down to the car that I picked. But as far as, the first few did pretty well, and then they kind of, the last one or two didn't get very many views. So it's something I'm certainly leaving the door open to in the future, but I'm not planning any in the immediate future here. And Omar said, if you were to get a truck, would it be electric like the Lightning or gas? Matt Ford Life. So I think if I were to get a truck, see, it's so hard because I'm not really a truck person at all. But if I were to get a truck, I guess if money was no object, I'd probably have a TRX. But if I had to spend my own money on a truck and I wanted to, I don't know, I'd probably just get like a Maverick or something. Honestly, is probably what I would get. I think a little front wheel drive Maverick hybrid, which shows you just how much of a non-truck guy I am. That would probably be a fun little thing if I had to get a truck. That would be a truck I would get. All right, so let me see here. I can go back see if there's any other new questions have popped up. Hopefully, yeah, everyone says just refreshing this stream is helping, but it seems like it's still messed up here. So you know what? We've already gone for an hour and 40 minutes, so maybe we can just bail on this since either YouTube's messing up or something's messing up on my end. I'm not sure what the deal is, but yeah, I think we can probably. It seems like some other people have left and stuff anyway. So yeah, we'll cut it off here for now and be back here next week for another live stream. Thank you all though so much for joining in and for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Thanks especially to the Truck and Car Guy for gifting all those memberships. I really appreciate it. And yeah, stay tuned for some interesting videos this week. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be doing the pull apart video here. They also have another video. I don't want to give it away for those of you who aren't members because I want to keep that a member exclusive thing. But another interesting video coming up on Wednesday that's a little out of the ordinary. So a little bit of a different week here with no car reviews. But I think it'll be really cool to see what I end up doing here. So anyway, yeah, it sounds like Goth Rocker says still lagging here for the stream. So we'll just bail here for now. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully we'll have less technical issues next time. Take care.